Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Let's All Be the Change. This is my feature on great inventions, which I try to do every Saturday. And today I'm going to talk about what I think is a really important invention, and I think probably most of you wouldn't dispute this, is the invention of the electric vacuum cleaner. I don't know. I mean, this was the first electric vacuum cleaner built in 1901. Anyway, let's just begin. So, the vacuum cleaner, actually, the whole science of vacuums has a pretty long history. And I talked about this in a previous video I made. I talked about, I think it was one of the 20 greatest inventions of the Renaissance, I said, was the vacuum pump, which is the thing shown on the bottom left here. This was invented in the 17th century by a German I guess a German physicist named Otto von Guericke. But before that, I mean, Aristotle, I guess, was the first person to sort of consider the vacuum. And what he said, and he was wrong about this, but he said this in the third century BC. He said that nature abhors a vacuum. He had kind of his own philosophy of the whole universe and what was it made of and how things move and all that. And it was really almost all completely wrong, including what he thought about the vacuum. I mean, it sort of seems like nature abhors a vacuum because if you try to create a vacuum, the air will just get sucked back in. So that's, I guess, why he thought that nature abhorred a vacuum. But in the 17th century, there were some scientists who studied the vacuum and actually produced the first vacuum. And I think one of the first people to do that, maybe the first was when the guy I mentioned just a few minutes ago, Otto von Guericke. And what he did was he had sphere, these two hemispheres. He put them together, and he pumped all the air out of them between them. And what he discovered once you do that is that you can't pull them apart because of the air pressure. I mean, that's how vacuums work. That's how vacuum cleaners work. It turns out that our atmosphere, actually, it's not obvious at all, but our atmosphere has a very large pressure. It's about 15 pounds per square inch. That means that every square inch of your body, every square inch of every part of your body, there's 15 pounds of atmosphere pressing against it. It might not seem like that. I mean, it doesn't, obviously. I was pretty mind boggled when I first learned this. But the reason you don't feel it is because it's balanced. There's also equal and opposite pressure inside your body, canceling that out. So it's really just sort of squeezing your skin together. You don't feel that. But if you lower the pressure inside something like the sphere, I mean, if you just put these two hemispheres together, there's air inside of them, and then it's easy to pull them apart because there's no difference in pressure inside and pressure outside. But if you removed all the air from between these spheres, you find, I think for the sphere he used, you need about 6,000 pounds of force to pull them apart because of the air pressure outside of the thing. And that's kind of the principle behind vacuum cleaners. I mean, there's a vacuum that gets created in them that sucks up the dirt from your floor. And it's pretty powerful. And, I'm sure you guys have all used a vacuum cleaner at some point in your life. I mean, they're still commonly used if you ever want to clean your house, you kind of need one. But the first vacuum cleaner that was ever built, the first electric vacuum cleaner anyway, was this big bulky machine shown in the bottom middle here. And this was an English inventor, Hubert Cecil Booth, who invented this thing and built this thing back in 1901. I guess it worked by, it had an engine inside that turned. It was electric, and electric engines had already been built. We had electric motors for some time in the late 19th century. You figured, well, why don't I apply that to creating a vacuum? So what it does is the motor spins inside, and I guess it creates a partial vacuum inside this machine. Um, and because there's a partial vacuum, there's a smaller pressure inside than outside. It'll suck in some of the air, and because of the difference in air pressure, that creates a big force that sucks the dirt off of your floor. So that's how vacuum cleaners work. And it wasn't much longer that, obviously this one he built wasn't practical. I mean, it's almost the size of a car. You don't really want that inside your house. But then a few years later, 1907, it was actually an American janitor named James Murray Spangler who invented his own upright vacuum cleaner, shown on the bottom right. This is basically the same design we still use today, except for the robotic ones. You don't have to push and pull yourself. But I mean, when I was a kid, most of my life, this was the kind of vacuum cleaners everybody used, to clean their house, and I think most of us still do. And I don't think Spangler. I mean, he did sell his copyright to William Hoover. Hoover was the one who marketed it. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Hoover vacuum cleaners. I think they still make them. So, it was Hoover that made all the money off of this invention. And his first upright vacuum cleaner was made in 1908. So I was a little surprised to learn it was that long ago, over 100 years ago. But over 100 years ago, we had upright vacuum cleaners. I don't know how many people were using them back then, but they've been using them all my life. I'm grateful for them. So anyway, that's the history of the electric vacuum cleaner, and that completes my video for today. So thank you for watching. Keep thinking, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.